Hey guys, welcome back to another Bible in the Backyard session. Um, we're gonna flip a couple things. I'm not gonna do a parable today. Um, we're gonna talk about water. We're gonna talk about Today. We're gonna talk about Jesus walking on the water, actually. And if you turn to Matthew, chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. We're going to be reading that and then talking about it. So, let's get started. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship to go before him unto the other side while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up to a mountain apart to pray, and when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand, caught him, and said unto him, O thou little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth thou art the Son of God. That's the basic story. We're going to dig into it a little bit and kind of see how that turns to us today. Even before the story starts, you have to understand Jesus just did a miracle. He just fed 5,000 plus people with 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread. He just fed all these people. Now he sent the disciples away, and he went up to the mountain to pray alone. And you have to understand this, is that Jesus was not with his disciples. His disciples went on a ship without him, went ahead of him, and Jesus is on the mountain. However, remember, these disciples that Jesus has, their background is fishermen. They're used to being on the sea. They're used to being on the ocean. They're used to being, granted, nobody wants to be caught in a storm in a ship. I understand that. But they knew what they were doing. They knew how to handle themselves, and yet they were still afraid. They're probably tired. They've literally probably done this. It probably started at dusk and then probably fought it all night. And in verse 26, it even says, and they cried out for fear. They were afraid. And it wasn't just because they were afraid because they saw a spirit. They were also afraid because of the ship, because of the sea, because it was crazy. They were tired. They were exhausted. And at this point, when you're exhausted, you think you start seeing things. If you've ever been in that scenario where you're just to the point of exhaustion and tired, and you're like, hey, what's going on? And there's nobody there. That can happen. So people thought, or they thought they were seeing a vision, and Jesus says, no, 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 no. Like, it's okay. I'm here. Don't be afraid. Peter's immediate decision in verse 28. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And I wrote this down, and it says Peter's immediate decision to go to Jesus is parallel to us becoming a Christian and being saved. It says Peter's decision is easy. It's an easy decision for him. He wants to be with Jesus. There's no question. There's no doubt. There's no fear. He wants to be with Jesus. He knows that Jesus is the answer, that Jesus is going to comfort him, and Jesus is going to keep him safe. There's no doubt about that in Peter's mind. No doubt, there's no fear. Let's go down a couple verses. Jesus said, "Come." And when Peter was come out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. So he was walking towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid. Beginning to sink, he cried, saying, "Lord, save me." When he saw what was around him, when he saw what he had to go through to get there, when he saw that he was going to Jesus, but when he looked around, when he took his eyes off of what was in front of him, what his true north was, what his goal, what he was aiming at, and he started looking around at everything going on, our phones, social media, arguing, fights, people at school, kids at school, teachers, our friends, you name it, just what life throws at us. When we look at those problems and we look at those issues and we lose the sight of Jesus is going to comfort me, Jesus is going to get me through this, regardless of what it is. And we're going to need some outside help, and we are. Because sometimes it's hard to walk alone. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid and beginning to sink. That's kind of us in our lives. It's the wind. It wants our attention. It's the devil. He wants our attention. He wants our time. It wants to fill us with our fear, our doubt. He wants us to fill with other people's opinions. If you're a kid, bullies, other people's beliefs, successes, our failures, Instagram worthy post versus reality, because we all have that. The thoughts in our own head dragging us down, and the fear of this, what am I supposed to do, versus this is what I've called you to do. Because Jesus said, "Come." He said, "Come to me." That's the wind. That's the waves. That's the wind. That's the loud noise surrounding us as individuals, as people. And also, I have this thought too of where was Peter when he began to sink, in relevance to where Jesus was. Was Jesus close to the boat when they saw him, and when Peter got out on the water and started walking, or was he right near the boat and was just beginning this journey and Jesus was a mile away? I don't think Peter got very far. He could have gotten a quarter of the way, he might have gotten halfway, but there was still a long way to go to get to Jesus, I feel like. He began to sink. As we do in life, we begin to sink. In verse 31 it says, "And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt?" So immediately after Peter cried out, "Lord, save me," Jesus says, "Here. I'm right here." So, in relevance to what I was saying before, you could feel like you're a mile away, and you can feel like you're whatnot. You ask the Lord to come into your life, He's there. He's immediately there. There's no question. It's not a. It's immediate. It's not. Once I get over there, let me put on my shoes first. Let me put on my goggles. Let me get my life raft. No, it was immediate. Peter could have been a mile from Jesus, but Jesus was right there. And this is the big thing. This next couple of things I'm going to say is kind of the big thing for this story has so much in it. Jesus is our safety net. He really is. He came, He gave His life for ours, and He gave us freedom. He gave us freedom. To have a safety net. It's a person that needs to be there as soon as we need help. It's even before that. Before we get ourselves in trouble and before we actually need our help, He's already there. He's right beside us. He's guiding us even as we go through it, and even if we can't see it in our daily walk yet. Even if you're starting out and you don't really see things coming so easily to you yet, like, He's still there. He is going to be there. He's picking us up, and He's steady. He's steady as a rock. And somebody that I follow, actually, he asked a question. He was like, I forgot what it was. It was like, Jesus is, or the Bible is, or something is, and he let us fill in the blank. And I said steady. Steady even in a storm. Because we are going to have storms in our lives. But during the storm, what do you want? Do you want this fear that they had back in verse 26 when they were crying out for fear? Or do you want peace? Unyielding, unquestionable peace. In this anxiety-driven world that we live in, it's peace. This is peace. God is peace. Jesus is peace. It's stillness to know that if I'm having a moment of what's going to happen in the next month, or what's going to happen in the next year, or where am I going, and I get this feeling of, oh my goodness, I can't breathe, or oh my goodness, I feel like I'm drowning. It's this stillness that I know I can rely on, and I know I can lean back on and fall into it. And it takes so long to get there sometimes. It does. And it's just this peace that is so assuring and so amazing that it's this, okay, you got me. Like, I'm not going down. You got me. And you can have that peace. You can. He's bidding you come. Like he did Peter. Peter even asked to go. And Jesus is like, yes, come on. He's bidding you come, and He's not even asking you to go the entire way right now just to get to know Him. He's asking you to take one step. One question, one conversation. Jesus isn't going to let you fall, just like He didn't let Peter fall in this. Jesus is our safety net, and He is one amazing being. that's it. That is the lesson for today. Hope you guys have a good day, morning, evening, wherever you're at. But yeah, Jesus is immediate, and that's a blessing. See ya.